Alright, before we start the video, let me get two things out of the way. One, thank you for this. And two, we're getting rid of this boring black background. Much better. Enjoy the video. Hey, have you ever wanted to go to space? Maybe hunt monsters or become a god as a side job? Well, you can do all these things and more in Risk of Rain 2. This game is phenomenal, combining the best elements of any roguelike with some more unique qualities to spice up gameplay. I really feel like this is one of the best games I've ever played, so without further ado, let's explore the world of Risk of Rain 2. First thing I asked you when starting this video was if you wanted to go to space. That's because the entirety of Risk of Rain 2 takes place on various different planets. And that is cool and all, but let me strip this game down for you so you have a basic idea of what the deal is before we begin. Risk of Rain is a roguelike. Just in case you don't know what that is, a roguelike is, in its most basic form, a game where you play through various different levels and receive upgrades until you die. At which point, you lose all progress and start over. You may be asking yourself, why would I want to lose all of my progress when I die? Well, this system sets up an endlessly fun and replayable gameplay loop that could literally last forever. That's what makes roguelikes fun. Anyway, so Risk of Rain 2 is a roguelike. How does it work? First thing you need to do is pick a survivor, of which there are currently 11. DLC has been announced for the future. Then a difficulty, Drizzle, Rainstorm, and Monsoon are the 3. Finally, you can pick any artifacts you want. I'll cover those later. And then you're ready to start. You spawn in, you look around, and the first thing you see is this f***er trying to burn you to a crisp. There's a ton of room to run around and experiment with your moves, as you aren't restricted to a 2D plane like most other roguelikes. You may also notice that there are chest-looking things around the map. These chests are called crates. There are many variants of these, each being more powerful than the last, but also more expensive. Right now, I'll talk about all the basic types of crates, and later in the video, I'll talk about a few more unique variants. First, the barrel, which just gives you money and XP. Next is the basic crate, which are pretty cheap, but don't have the best loot. Large chests are more expensive, but they have a much better chance to have better loot, and can't even drop common items. Legendary chests are extremely rare to spawn naturally, but have a guaranteed location on a select few maps. Most of the time, you're going to want to grind for these, as even a single legendary item can significantly boost your power. Cloak chests are just complete garbage. I mean, seriously, why are they in the game? It's literally invisible. The rusted lockbox requires a rusted key to open. These are pretty rare, and most of the time just have the loot of a common chest anyway. I'd say it's a waste of time. A terminal gives you a choice between 3 items, sometimes being random. These are very good for getting specific items you need in a run. The scrapper is a strange chest that allows you to sacrifice items for cardboard boxes. Why do you want this? Because at a 3D printer, these boxes take priority over your other items when being sacrificed. When you don't have any scrap, the printer will sacrifice a random item of the same rarity and give you the item in the printer. All of this can give you some good loot. But what exactly is this loot you're getting? The items in Risk of Rain 2 are extremely varied, to put it simply. They each serve a completely different function, and yet most work in conjunction with one another somehow. It's really ingenious game design, so let me explain how they really work. First of all, each item has a rarity. This indicates how good the item will potentially be in your run. The order goes common, rare, boss, equipment, and legendary. There are also lunar items, but I'll cover those later. Common items include things like the Soldier's Syringe and Lensmaker Glasses. These are items that aren't too significant on their own, but when stacked can potentially boost your character to God status. Some of the best common items would be the Soldier's Syringe, Lensmaker Glasses, and the Teddy Bears. The next tier is rare, of which there are many. These items are each very useful on their own, but get more powerful with multiple. Some of the best include the Ukulele, ATG, and both the Kajaros and Runal's Band. Boss items are much rarer than the previous types, as they can only occasionally be obtained when you kill a boss. The vast majority of these are underwhelming to say the least, but items like the Shatter Spleen and Charged Perforator are actually quite good. Finally, legendary items are the rarest items in the game. Each of these can significantly boost your run while only having even one, potentially even carrying it past godlike status. Some of the best items in the game include the 57 Leaf Clover and Meat Hook. Okay, now that we've had a look into the items of Risk of Rain 2, why don't we dive into the enemies? Uh-oh. So, at the beginning of this video, I told you that you would be able to fight space monsters. Well, if that's what you wanted, you've come to the right place. I love the enemy design in this game, not just artistically. Each enemy works in tandem to make everywhere on the map feel like a danger zone. Trying to camp behind a wall, an imp will backstab you. Trying to camp in the air, lesser wisps will snipe you down. Literally trying to be anywhere, these assholes will literally kill you from anywhere. So, you get the idea. The enemy design is great, but why would you want to kill these poor, harmless creatures? Well, it's to steal their money. That's right, you thought you'd be coming into these missions with a budget? You're crazy! No, if you want to buy a teddy bear, you're gonna have to commit a genocide to get it. Basically, enemies drop money, which is what you use to buy crates. This forces you to decide between farming enemies and leaving the level. You may be wondering why you wouldn't just farm one level and keep going. This is for one simple reason. There's a timer, and as time goes on, the difficulty increases. We're talking more health, more damage, and more elites. What are elites? I'm glad you asked. Elites are just like any normal enemy, just a lot stronger. Each elite has a special ability. Blazing elites do massive damage and set you on fire. Glacial elites freeze you on hit and make a giant icy blast when they die. Overloading elites attach bombs to you when they hit you. Malachite elites shoot spikes that do tons of damage and disable healing. And Celestine masks nearby enemies and makes you slow on hit. These elites become more frequent in your run as time goes on, but they aren't all bad. Sure, they are a lot stronger, but they do give you more money and XP, as well as bringing even more strategy to the late game. If you aren't paying attention to what types of elites are near you, at any given time, you're sure to die. Elites are cool and all, but is there anything stronger? Well, remember how I told you about boss items? That's right, it's time to talk about bosses. Bosses are basically just beefed up, stronger enemies. Just like my sub count should be beefier. Please subscribe. There is more to them, but because I have quite a bit to get through, I'll save your time and just list the bosses in order of how hard they are, first being the easiest and so on. I'd have to say it goes Beetle Queen, Stone Titan, Wandering Vagrant, Magma Worm, Imp Overlord, Grove Tender, Grandparent, Soulless Control Unit, Scavenger, and Clay Dune Strider. The obvious outlier here is the Dune Strider, but this is for a good reason. These bosses were ranked based on how hard they are as soon as you have a chance of seeing them. Most of the bosses in this game are very easy, but for some reason, you can get this guy on stage 2. The raw damage output alone would be enough to put him on top at this stage, but that's not all the clay pot has in store. When his health gets low enough, he'll drop to the ground and begin to steal life out of everything around him, including enemies. This attack is very difficult to escape, does a ton of damage, and heals a lot of his health. This attack alone is why I would rank the Claydune Strider as the hardest boss. Alright, we just talked about bosses, but what else happens when you activate the teleporter? Well, ironically enough, the bosses aren't even too difficult compared to what comes next. Yeah, a whole bunch of enemies just kinda show up. The sheer amount of enemies that can show up on your screen at one time is honestly breathtaking. The fact that you can't land on the ground most of the time makes the sheer amount of enemies that spawn 100% the most difficult part of any teleporter event. Okay, so you beat all the enemies in the boss. What happens next? Well, hopefully you stayed in this red bubble the whole event, because if you didn't, you have to wait and charge up the teleporter. Once it's done charging, the bubble will disappear and you're free to do whatever you want until you're ready to move to the next stage. So, as you're fighting your way through monsters, you may have noticed if you dropped these purple coins. But you're just a baby who's never played this game before, so let me tell you what these coins are for. When I was talking about chests and items, I purposefully left out a few things for later. For example, these pods and frog statues. What are they for? Well, this is where the Lunar Coins come into play. If you give away your hard-earned cash, then you will receive one of two things. If you open the pod, you'll get a special type of item, which I'll cover in a bit, and if you offer to the frog, you'll get an ominous chat message? Okay, let me just beat the teleporter event and... What the heck is that? That, my friend, is a portal to the Lunar Bazaar. I love this place. As you spawn in immediately, you'll notice the bridge to a small cave. This is the actual bazaar. Inside you can pick the next stage, trade in some of your items, greet the friendly shopkeeper, but most of all, you can buy lunar items. What is this? Well, if you bought the lunar pod, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. These type of items can be incredibly powerful, but every lunar item comes with a downside to outweigh the upside. Most lunar items aren't actually worth it, to be honest, but there is one that, in my opinion, is extremely powerful. Purity decreases all of your skill cooldowns by 2 seconds, but reduces your luck. The reduction in luck sounds like a bad thing because now all items that have a chance of happening will happen even less, but the fact that with even just 3 of these you can fly, I think that luck downgrade might be pretty obsolete. The sheer potential of this item with every character is insane, and that's why I think Purity is the best lunar item. Assuming you've survived this long, you will have reached the Sky Meadows. Unless you choose otherwise, this is the final stage between you and the big man himself, Mythrix. Clear the meadows and beam yourself up towards the moon. Once you spawn in and go through this annoyingly long tunnel, you'll notice 4 beacons around the map. Because at this point you're a pro at charging things, you know exactly what comes next. Oh yeah, it's time to charge some beacons. Although, there's a catch. Each beacon has a special property that makes it harder to charge, the worst of which being Knockback Beacon, which literally tries its best to stop you from doing what it's designed to do. Okay, you got those beacons out of the way, now it's time to hump on a jump pad and go say hello to Mythrix. Mythrix is basically the god of the moon, so what would you expect? Some powerful magic maybe? Maybe some godlike world-ending power? Nope. Instead, Mythrix chooses to swing a hammer around like a toddler who didn't get what he wanted. In all seriousness though, this final boss is a perfect way to end off the game. He makes you use all the knowledge you've gained so far to dodge his attacks and defeat him, not to mention the great background music. However, just when you think you've won, this guy has the audacity to steal all of your items. If you manage to still triumph, it's time to run back to your escape ship, charge your last charge, and say goodbye to Risk of Rain 2.